Hey, good morning once again, options traders. Well, how many red or green candles should you expect in a row? And I got this idea from a trader I was speaking with recently who said that the stock market is far from random. It's not this idea of a random walk. Instead, once you get a streak of, let's say, green candles, there's a much stronger chance that that is going to continue. There's this whole idea of momentum behind it. Well, is that really true? And if it is true, it should be able to beat the laws of chance. So I thought that would be kind of a fun little project, put this whole concept to the test. And let's just find out how many red or green candles in a row you should expect. As always, before we get started, please be sure to click like and subscribe. Greatly appreciated and definitely helps to promote the channel. So for example, just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about by streaks, here's roughly a year's worth of time. I don't know if it's exactly 1 year, but here's December of 2023, and today is December 6th, and we're going back to December of last year. So if we look through here, it looks like a pretty good mixture of reds and greens. Here's a little streak, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 greens, and then another 6, trying to follow for red and green. I might be missing some, but let's see if there are other streaks. Here's another streak of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. So it looks like 7 was the longest streak. We got a few streaks of 6s, but 7 seems to be a fairly long streak over a 1 year period. And again, the question we're trying to figure out, could that happen just by chance? Well, to answer that, we can model it with a coin flip. And it's a good way to start because coin has no memory. It is purely random. And we've got a 50-50 shot. We've got the most uncertainty at the 50-50 level. So again, before you can make this claim that the stock market is far from random, well, then you must be able to beat chance. You have to be able to beat the laws of chance. So for example, let's say that you're in a coin guessing competition and it's flipped 100 times and you get 50 correct answers. Well, you shouldn't go claiming that you're clairvoyant because you didn't beat the laws of chance. You would expect to get 50% of them right just by dumb luck. So that's always the first hurdle to clear. So now with a coin flip, if we flip it one time, there are two outcomes, heads and tails. 2 times we get 4 outcomes. And the reason for this is that we had 2 outcomes for the first flip, but the coin has no memory. So it doesn't know what it just flipped, so they are independent. It doesn't matter what was flipped before, there's still 2 chances, heads and tails, for the second flip. So 2 times 2 or 4 different outcomes. Now we can also write this 2, we raise it to the second, or 2 to the second power, 2 squared, just means 2 times 2. But that's just another way of saying 4. If we flip a coin 3 times, there are 8 possible outcomes, or 2 to the third power, 2 cubed. That's 2 times 2 times 2. For 4 times, 4 flips, there are 16 possible outcomes, or 2 to the fourth. So that's some of the notation that we're going to be using. Now let's take a look at some of the probabilities graphically here. Here's our coin. On the first flip, we get a heads or a tail. Those are the only 2 possibilities. So there's 1 out of 2 ways, or a 50% chance that we're going to get either one of these. If we flip the coin a second time, then there are 4 possibilities. We could have the head followed by a head on the second flip, but it could also be followed by a tail. If we got a tail on the first flip, it could be followed by a head, or it could also be followed by a tail. So notice that we now have 4 different outcomes, or 1 in 4 chance of one of these happening. We could also say that for a streak of 2, there would be 1 out of 4 ways. We're either going to get 2 heads or 2 tails. Those are the only ways we could get a streak, if you wanted to call that a streak, over 2 flips. But now what would happen if we flip the coin 8 times? Now we're going to get these for all of the possibilities. So we could say there's a 50% chance. We could also multiply those out. 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 would give us 1 out of 8, or about a 12.5% chance. And so that's what we're seeing here. Each of these outcomes has a 1 in 8 chance. So what would be the probability of getting 3 heads in a row? Would be 1 out of 8. Or 3 tails in a row, 1 out of 8. So the probability of a streak of 3, or for 3 coin flips here, would be 1 in 8, or again about a 12.5% chance. Now once we have this idea, kind of this logic behind us, we can create a little formula. So for example, let's say that we have a streak of 3. Each flip has a probability of a half, so we take a half raised to the third. If I did this 8 times, I should expect 1 streak. So do you see what's happening? We're just taking the same logic that we just looked at and we're just kind of rearranging it. So I'm saying if we're looking for a streak of 3, that's the exponent. So either 3 heads or 3 tails, that's where that 3 is coming from. But I flip this coin 8 times, that's the number of rows here, I should expect 1 streak. And again, that's what we're seeing here, either a streak of heads or a streak of tails. Let's try another one. How many streaks of 4 should you expect from 16 flips? Well, now we take our streak, that's the exponent, each with a probability of a half, 0.5 to the fourth times 16, that's the number of flips, equals 1. I would expect 1 streak of 4 if I flip the coin 16 times. And again, we're just working the formula backwards. I could also say 2 to the fourth is 16. How many streaks of 4 should you expect in 32 flips? Well, if I'm going to flip twice as long, I should now get 2 streaks. So 0.5 to the fourth times 32, in fact, equals 2. How many streaks of 4 should you expect in 8 flips? 0.5 to the fourth times 8 is a half. What this is telling you is that you're probably not going to get a streak of 4 in only 8 flips because that number is less than 1. So again, what if we did it 16 times? How many times should we expect a streak of 4? 0.5 to the fourth times 16 is 1. We should expect 1 streak of 4, either all heads or all tails, and there's 16 rows. So that's really the logic behind it. Now we can flip this formula, and we could say that if you flip a coin, let's say 1,024 times, what's the maximum streak you should expect? Well, now we have to figure out, by using some logs, we can take the log of 1,024 divided by the log of 2, in fact, equals 10. And again, we know that must be true because 2 to the 10th is 1,024. So hopefully you're starting to see the logic behind it. So let's try one more. Out of 250 trading days, what's the maximum streak of red or green candles you should expect? Well, we just take the log of 250 divided by the log of 2 equals 7.96. And we can figure that out. We're just saying 2 to some power should give us 250. And we know that 2 to the 8th is 256. So you can see that we're just shy of 8. So we should be just shy of 256. Or you could also say, take 2 raised to the 7.96 and you'll get 250. All right, so you can do that on a calculator. So for example, we can pull up a calculator, we can take 250, there's the log key, divided by log of 2, and that's how we're getting the 7.96. So it's something you can easily figure out on a calculator. So in a 1 year's period, we have about 250 candles, usually about 252. We should expect a streak of about 8 candles. And if you remember from the previous demonstration right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7. Now, of course, the laws of chance don't mean that they come out exact, but you can see that was the longest streak. We never even got to 8. So that's a pretty good expectation. It shows that if you had to select random or not random, you got to, at least in this example, lean more towards the fact that it was purely random. Okay, so now that we have that little brief background, let's pull up an Excel spreadsheet with some data of the S&P 500 and see across different time periods if these streaks beat the laws of chance. All right, so now we're into Excel, and I just downloaded these. Anybody can do it from finance.yahoo.com. And I've downloaded all of the available data. We've got 7,767 rows. And so those are the number of days. Here are the dates going back to 1993. And what I've done is I've coded Excel to figure out, based on the open and the close, if it would have been a red candle or a green. If it did happen to have the same open and close, such as here, we just get this little dash. And then what this column does is it just counts these streaks. So right there we got a streak of 4 greens. All right, we just continue on down the road counting these streaks. So if we look at the entire list, 7,767 days, mathematically, based on the formula that we just looked at, right, it would be right there, what we just saw, log of 7767 divided by the log of 2. We should expect 12.92, or let's just call it 13. How many did we get? A streak of 13. If we go for the first 250 days, as I showed, we should expect about, let's call it 8. We got 7. Over 500 days, or roughly a 2-year period, we should expect closer to 9. We got 7. If we go for 1,000 days, we should expect about 10. We got 9. If we go for 2,000 days, we should expect about 11. We got 9. And over 4,000 days, we should expect about 12, and we got 10. So right there, you have to say, if you had to pick a side, does this look more like a coin flip and just pure randomness? Or does it look like once we go on a streak of greens or reds, that they just stay on that streak? And there's now a 60 or 70% chance for that to happen. Well, if that were true, these actual numbers would be far bigger. They wouldn't be in line with the expectations. So I think that's pretty good evidence that if you had to pick, you've got to lean more to the side that we're dealing with a random process. Now let's go look at one of the best tests of all. Let's go take a look at the maximum number of streaks. So here's a little table of what we've looked at before. For 250 days, we saw should be about 8 streaks, either red or green. And then all the way down here, if we want to look at 16,000 days, we should expect about 14. It's about 64 years, at least in stock market terms, about 250 trading days. If we go to 32,000, we would expect about 128 years to get closer to 15. So if you remember, earlier this year, in 2023, we almost tied the streak of the Dow, closing 14 straight increases. You can see it right there. And the headline was the Dow just couldn't party like it's 1897. That happened in 1897, that we got 14 in a row. And it hasn't happened since. We got 13 and we couldn't quite get the 14th green. So how long is it from 2023 to 1897? 126 years. Exactly what we should expect. And so again, I think this is really good evidence, at least at a basic level, that you're dealing far more with chance than these definite momentum streaks where people think that these trends are just going to continue. And that sheds light on a much deeper issue. You got to be really careful about trying to guess coin flips. Same thing here in the stock market. You've got to be really careful about thinking you can pick these turning points any more than you can pick when the coin is going to flip from heads to tails. Instead, it's best to trade the market, but hedge your opinion. And the best way to do that is with options. And so for anyone who'd like to learn more about the art and science of options trading, please check out the Alpha Trader course, Strategy Lab, and a Candlesticks and Technical Analysis course. It's all at optionsatoz.com. Also, please join us on Options A to Z's Facebook trading group, and you can find a link in the description below.